Goddamn conventions. Crazy about them. I've said multiple times that furry conventions are something I've always seen myself enjoying from a distance. Knowing that friends of mine and other people attending are probably enjoying themselves with their friends at these conventions is usually enough for me. But if that's the case, then surely I would want to go down to a convention and enjoy myself with my friends, right? Hell, it would even be a great opportunity to actually see them face to face, since the majority of my friends thought it was okay to not only live in different states, but completely different continents as well. The fucking nerve for them to not live 10 minutes away at all times. Well, that FurCon meetup isn't something I'd actually see myself doing, thanks to a little cocktail known as anxiety and fear. Because there are so many stories and tales of furry conventions screwing up royally or attendees just being absolute scum bastards, one can't help but feel a bit cautious about actually going to one. If this happened at X or Y Con, what are the chances of it happening at the convention I go to? What if some people there seem a bit too friendly towards me? What if the staff aren't joking about having a ball pit? It's just a jumble of what ifs and piling concerns that ultimately leave me watching on the sidelines. However, that isn't to say that you can't enjoy yourself at a furry convention. Even with the constant coverage of incident after incident, there are attendees who have fun and enjoy their time in a decent and safe manner. Not everyone attending a FurCon is some provocative sexual deviant or predator waiting for some victim to pounce on, but when one does rear their head, it can alter the view of the convention due to that event taking up the spotlight on social media, and in most cases, I see that as somewhat of a good thing. Whether it's the predators being outed or the victims speaking up about the pain they had to go through, it allows those willing to listen knowledge on what to be cautious of when attending conventions, so hopefully there isn't a case where sexual assault occurs or gets silenced with every passing con. But in the case of sexual deviance, this instead varies from case to case. Some sexual events occur and are a complete danger to those unfortunate enough to bear witness. Stuff like indecent exposure, public fornication, sexual assaults. Then there are events that are done in public between fully consenting adults. Events where nobody was harmed during its happening, but became an issue when that consensual event resulted in the conception of a potential biohazard.
Oh my god. Oh my god, John. Yeah. John, what do you mean? John, are you gonna come again?
At 8:30 p.m. on October 22nd, the user ManWolfie would upload a tweet. 19 confirmed pizza comers. Can you believe it? Because I still can't. This party was fucking amazing, and I only have all of my friends and mutuals to thank for supporting me. Major shoutouts to
Name and address withheld.
Attached was a photo of exactly what he advertised. A pizza, topped with pepperoni and man milk from presumably 19 different sources. But apparently me getting anchovies on my pizza is the grossest thing one can do to it. I see how it is. Now, it's one thing that's being done in private between adults and a pizza who probably didn't consent to getting plastered, now that I think about it. Even posting this on social media isn't the worst sin, as boasting about perverted and food-tarnishing activities is nothing new in the slightest. The worst part of this ordeal was the fact that they decided to leave that sprayed-down pizza in the hallway for any other attendee, con staff, or hotel employee to come across. But surely you didn't need to ping hotel staff to tell them about this on Twitter, because it was supposedly taken care of and disposed of already. Only it wasn't. At least not in as timely a manner as you'd like to believe. ManWolfie says that the pizza was thrown out shortly after, yet this is after him saying that they left it in the hallway, a reply that seems to have been mysteriously deleted along with the original tweet. In its place was a repost of the image where he instead types, "The pizza was not left in the hallway. It was thrown away. I was the sole reason this party happened. A lot of you are very upset. I will address your concerns in another PowerPoint." Now immediately, we're hit with a half-truth, as there was a user who took a photo of the pizza as it was in the hallway. This confirms that it was left out there. The only thing is that they did end up disposing of the pizza, just not before leaving it in the hallway for a bit. Also, he may have been the sole reason the party was orchestrated, but that doesn't exactly explain why those attending were so eager to boast about their inclusion in the Papa John's pizza painting. But you know what does explain this? the brainworm that is clout chasing. You would assume that because the initial tweet was deleted, the people who attended didn't want to be involved, right? And I wouldn't blame you for assuming that people on the internet were capable of feeling shame. Because while this ordeal was going down, you had users posting their own images and videos of pizza in question, saying that they contributed to the spunk on the pizza, the number and the order that they... You know what I mean. People were bragging about being in the pictures that were taken at the gathering, and users were thanking their hosts while saying they enjoyed their time. Sure, it would make sense to announce who these attendees were here, but as I've said, clout is one hell of a drug. I don't exactly plan on giving users attention for simply attending a pizza bukkake. The only reason I've mentioned Manwolfie by name is due to him being the one who orchestrated the whole event. Regardless of the fact that he seems to be riding this clout train harder than any other attendee. Dude even changed his Twitter name from Seaman Demon to Pizza Puppy, literally making this 15 minutes of fame event his new online branding. Although, as the entire ordeal settled down, it would appear that Manwolfie was allegedly banned, not from BLFC, but from the hotel itself. Not surprising in the slightest, but it does kind of put on display that the hypersexual portion of the fandom hasn't left whatsoever. This can be shown from just the sheer growth in his follower count, jumping from a little under 2k to a little over 7 in the span of a business week. Oh, and about that presentation.
And that brings me on to my 6th point. My 6th point... Come. Oh my god, there's so much cum, holy shit. This fucking a watermelon, it's so hot. Look, it's the pizza delivery boy too. Oh, bark.
Believe me when I say that no riches in the world, no coffee donation of any kind will get me to watch this again post-upload.
They hate us because they ain't us.
Essentially, the presentation wasn't an explanation as to the thought process behind this obviously fetish-driven work. Instead, it was 7 reasons why you should host my cum pizza party. A presentation so void of reason and decency that it might just end up being one of my 13 reasons why. Assuming tape recorders haven't gone extinct yet. To save you the trouble of scavenging for it, I'll just list these 7 reasons here. All points that, for the most part, aren't worth the hassle of going somewhere to nut on food. I'm not one to kink shame, nor should I be one to kink shame for that matter. But surely it can't be that hard to not let your kinks affect those not involved in the activity, right? The fandom's so sex positive to the point that presenting yourself behaving as a hypersexual cum-brained rando on the internet is essentially rewarded through the serotonin seeing the rising follow and notification count brings. It's actually kind of dystopian in a sense. You could say that I'm kink shaming something harmless or I'm thinking too deep about something, but that doesn't really stop the fact that this fandom does have a hypersexualization issue. At this point, constant sexualization is just kind of one of those things you have to deal with if you plan on being involved with the fandom, or even just furries in general. I mean, it does say a lot when people are eager to wrongly call BLFC the next rainforest, instead of calling this cum pizza thing the next DashCon ball pit. They didn't ruin the convention they were at per se, but it definitely is going to be what the convention is remembered for. It's only a matter of time before that mentality results in someone getting unwillingly sexualized by another fellow furry. And of course, by a matter of time, I unfortunately mean at the exact same convention told to the public just moments after this cum pizza thing began to gain traction. On October 23rd, the user Corvan Rai would come out with their story of sexual assaults that occurred at BLFC 2021. I was sexually assaulted at BLFC 21, and I had such a miserable time that I fled on day 2 on the first flight I could get out of Reno. But you're probably going to ignore this post and laugh about the 19 people who came on a pizza instead. Hashtag priorities. The actual details of the incident were explained in a YouTube video he had linked below. In his video, he explains how he's been in the furry fandom since 2017, how he attends conventions to make new friends and whatnot. He then tells us about how he got a hotel room with a close friend of his and someone he referred to as Rando at the time. As if Dustin hadn't been done dirty enough in the Lisa games. In all seriousness though, he says how this person attended the convention expecting nothing but to get into someone's pants, and how he's both parts aggravated and saddened that his main form of showing friendly affection, that being hugging, could have led to this person jumping onto Corvin's back and proceeding to straddle him while groping his crotch. This experience led to him gambling away a considerable amount of funds trying to forget what happened before going to a dinner with a close friend he hadn't seen in a while. Sleep deprived, he would decide that staying at the convention was too much for him, hastily packing up his belongings, minus his shoes, and heading to the airport in an attempt to catch whatever flight he could get back home as soon as possible. And naturally, God forbid if this were to happen to you, you'd want to spread this with the intention of keeping it from happening to anyone else. Corvin attempts to do this here, admittedly not worded in the best manner. You'd think that this would result in users correcting Corvin in between expressing their concerns for him. You know, showing some sympathy to a victim while informing them about their mistake. And while yes, that did occur, what also occurred en masse was labeling a sexual assault victim as anti-sex, homophobic, and transphobic, along with invalidating his experiences to the point that one of his statements were proven right, regardless of how harshly it was presented. As it would make sense for you to go through these statements to see what caused such backlash, we'll go through them now. In regards to anti-sex and homophobia,
and I want to reach out to you, the furry that spends most of your con in your room feeling sorry for yourself, and then on social media you tell the world you had a wonderful time. Look, I get it. But here's a disconnect I'm seeing in the fandom today. There's this unspoken rule about being congenial and making sure that you're parroting the quote-unquote correct opinions, and you suppress any concerns you see around you most of the time, because there's a fear that you'll be ostracized and canceled if you speak up or step out of line with the popular narrative. Well, here's me speaking up finally. I think there's far too many furries that are far too concerned with sex than they are with actually being good people and actually caring for one another like they used to. The fandom was supposed to be welcoming. The fandom was supposed to be free of judgment. The fandom was supposed to stand for solidarity among the socially awkward and friendship extended to all of the different people of the world. Not anymore, it seems. Not that it seems to matter anyhow, since now that the priority seems to be sex now, sex as quickly as possible, sex in every which way you can get it. And we're hypocritical about how we view sex, too, because a lot of you believe that rape culture is a thing, my body, my rules is a thing, and that fursuit is not consent. All these slogans you like to blather on about. But in reality, I've observed that pound for pound, the more rainbows a furry covers themselves with, the more rapey they're likely to be, the more sex-starved and perverted they're likely to be, the more likely their priorities are only themselves and their own feelings, and never, ever the world around them.
As most are aware, sex and sex positivity are definitely prominent parts of the fandom, obviously. Though there definitely shouldn't be such a focus on it to the point where individuals show up to cons just for sex with potential strangers, and stunts like the one mentioned prior, but you know, if it's between consenting adults, go off I guess. The part where things got a bit iffy was in regards to the more rainbows a furry covers themselves in, the more rapey they're likely to be. While I personally don't believe this statement was meant to be homophobic, I can understand how it would be perceived as that. Also, the fact that it's generally untrue. I mean, just look at these guys for example. Not one rainbow in sight, but track record so vile you'd wish you could chuck them to the end of one. But in regards to transphobia,
you want people to respect your pronouns just on a superficial level. You don't seem to want to have to be respectful to others in return.
Call me ignorant here, but I couldn't find anything but this that could be considered such, and even then it feels like it was somewhat of a misunderstanding. Here, Corvin was pointing out the hypocrisy between how we focus on making sure no one is misgendered, all pronouns are respected, but there have been numerous times where people have been generally abhorrent to others, and then the fandom just turns the other cheek or even endorses it. There's no reason we should be able to do one and not the other. Surely we can respect pronouns and not be horrid beings towards one another. This is even brought up again in a way that couldn't really be misinterpreted.
I did not enjoy the convention itself, and I exited as quickly as I could from what I saw as a hostile, sex-obsessed crowd The furry fandom, for all of its bleating about how we need to respect one another and express concern for pronouns instead of concern for mutual respect, genuine mutual respect among all sexes, all creeds, all genders, we largely ostracize and judge people who don't conform and belong to the specific set of sexual tastes that we have, and we don't follow our own professed beliefs.
Even though Corvin is generalizing furries here, he again expresses the point that we as a fandom should be practicing our preachings of treating everyone around us as equal living beings, not digging up the past of a sexual assault victim because you didn't like the way they worded a message as they were sleep deprived. Where do I even begin with this fucking ordeal? Remember how I said there were those who corrected Corvin about the way he worded his message, and those who considered his assault invalid because of said message? You also had those who put his less than desirable past on the hot seat because of this. Because apparently the fact he hasn't posted on this account in a year and is suddenly starting shit was enough to call his allegation BS and go on a search for his main accounts, which were then found and later peddled as a reason not to believe his story and that his points were invalid. This was done by bringing up the disgusting things he's done as far back as 2012 to invalidate him by presenting this as a common trend, leading to many accepting this news and immediately spreading the word that Corvin, or Azraeli as he was known back then, was a liar, that he was lying about being sexually assaulted to stir trouble and push alt-right beliefs. Never mind how hypocritical this is given the fact that a transphobic BLFC story was pushed much faster and believed off of just hearsay moments after this. But what the fuck? Who in the right mind thought that using shitty behavior from someone in 2012 to invalidate a sexual assault claim in 2021 was fucking sane? This is the same fandom that essentially lets people off the hook for more recent and disgusting shit because, oh, you're just a hater. Stop bringing up old drama. Like, I genuinely can't wrap my head around it. But regardless of what happened here, Corvin would later name his abuser, tell us he was giving this information to the BLFC staff, and release a video explaining everything that was brought up in this controversy. In this video, he addresses the insensitivity of a number of statements he made and apologizes for them.
In my last video, I shared an experience of sexual assault that occurred to me during BLFC that was so traumatic that it caused me to flee the con in the middle of the night, spending my entire remaining budget on a flight home. Immediately after returning home, I set out to create a video describing my horrible experience, and in my haste to get my thoughts out, I didn't stop to really absorb the impact of what I was saying and reflect on what had happened. I was in full-on reaction mode. I said some things that were insensitively hurtful to the furry community and my dear LGBT friends within the community. And for this I want to express my sincerest apologies. Since making that video, I have had many of these same friends reach out to me directly and offer their love and support, and also tell me how wrong and hurtful some of the things I said were. I want to thank you all for your overwhelming support, and thank you for the civil responses that pointed out my mistakes. You are all wonderful, and I'm humbled by your love and caring. Now, I would like to take the time to apologize to the community and the friends that I've hurt with my words, clear up some things, and address some things that were also misconstrued.
He also takes this time to condemn those who accused him of lying about this experience, simply due to his past vile actions.
Also, since my last video, I have named my abuser, I've talked to con staff about this incident, and I plan to talk it out with the person I accused as well eventually, so that we can resolve this issue in a positive and measured way. Get the good ending, as it were. That said, those of you that questioned or even outright accused me of lying about what happened based on the kind of person you thought I may or may not be, you should be ashamed of yourselves. This isn't behavior that you would accept from people you love and care about, and it's certainly not behavior that the fandom is emblematic of. Belief in the claims of a sexual assault survivor are not conditional on sharing your exact set of values or conditional on if the person deserves human decency or not. I will elaborate on my background in a bit, But regardless of what I may have said or done in the past, it saddens and disappoints me to find out that I have to defend myself, all while explaining my case of trying to report my sexual assault to the fandom. I feel like I owe some of you a giant fuck you or two, but honestly, I'm tired of fighting, and I would rather focus on the level-headed people who will understand what I'm about to say, and not the insensitive, angry victim blamers who refuse to.
All in all, a fantastic apology where he addresses everything that has gone on in the span of 3 days. So, at the end of this entire ordeal, I think we should all take at least a few things into consideration here. I know believe all victims isn't something we can abide by, given by the fact that some out there actually will lie about their experiences to ruin someone's life. However, this shouldn't lead to us immediately doubting a victim's experience because they said something in an insensitive way. The fact that someone could be sexually assaulted and then smeared as a liar for it due to their past harmful actions is actually kind of horrifying. And all while laughing and making jokes about 19 dudes nutting on food at the same convention. Some things just feel too surreal to be said aloud, but that's all I got for this one. As I mentioned earlier, there were other incidents concerning transphobic treatment against an individual at a convention, but I won't be going over that here. Everything at the moment is still currently hearsay, and I'd like to wait on more definite details before reporting on it. But I'd like to thank you for making it to the end of the video. Be sure to leave your thoughts on both this unfortunate incident, as well as the unfortunate pizza that had to go through that convention. Like, subscribe, all that usual YouTube crap, and I'll see you in the next video. Stay safe out there.